Right then, guys, so welcome to this very special edition of Empower Online. This is off the back of a conversation that I had with Guru Mark Tucker a while ago about whether JKD has kind of missed the boat. So I wanted to kind of open the floor to experience different people's views on JKD, whether it has missed the boat, whether people, where people think JKD is at the moment, and where people think JKD could be in the future. So tonight is not about politics. It's not necessarily about lineage, although obviously that will come in a little bit. Not about point scoring. So it's more about kind of the honest reflection of everything, sharing experience about how and what JKD could be, what it is now, and what it could be moving forward. So I'm going to open it up, as I've said a couple of times now to you guys. There is people of far more experience here, far better at JKD, etc. But I've got a platform, I'm going to use it, and I love JKD as much as you guys. So who wants to kick off and say what they think the state of JKD now is in the year that we are nearly about to end in, 2025, so going into 2026 again? Where do we think JKD is as a martial art, guys?
I'll go.
Excellent, thank you, Matt.
What do you mean by missing the boat?
Yeah, so me and Mark had a great conversation when I was down in Southampton a couple of weeks ago, and we did this Combat Conversations thing where he said kind of with relation to JKD, MMA had its big phase, or it's still having its big phase potentially. BJJ has had its big phase, kickboxing's had its big phase, karate's had its big phase. JKD maybe has kind of missed the boat in terms of that. That was his argument in terms of it didn't have that big explosion because maybe the founder died a little bit too young, but it never really had that major kind of impact that it had in the world. Obviously it's big, but you're not seeing it in terms of MMA fighters kind of going in at JKD, but you're not getting it in the same level, I suppose. So I think that's kind of what he meant, and that's what I took from it.
As in it didn't get super popular?
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Around the world sort of thing. Yeah, okay. Well, I have to agree with that. It didn't really get that popular, but that's partly because of what it is. I think it's a personalized system for your own development, and that means it's very difficult to put it into a school and make it the same everywhere across the world like you would get with BJJ or kickboxing, because it's a personal journey, isn't it? So I think that's possibly why it didn't quite make it to that level of popularity.
Okay.
The first reason I would say.
Yay or nay, people?
Disagree?
I disagree. I disagree almost completely, because here's the deal. We wouldn't be here all together, right, on November 30th of 2025 if JKD had not exploded in popularity 30, 40 years ago. That's the thing. See, it was extremely popular. In 1995, let's say, you just had to open up and people would flock to your door because it's
interesting.
Okay, so there was, but here's the difference. The popularity of Jeet Kune Do was driven by media in the form of magazines and books. And I would say for a good solid, let's say 15 years, just because UFC 1 debuted in 1993. So let's go before 1993. So I joined Dan Inosanto 10 years before UFC 1. And I can tell you for a fact, in the 80s, you want to talk about popularity explosion? Oh my God. It was the Jeet Kune Do clan that changed the listings for martial art events. Prior to the birth of seminars, the event listings were all tournaments. Tournament this, tournament that. And then seminars became a thing, starting possibly in the late 70s. So for about 15 years, from about 1978 to 1993, there was a popularity explosion beyond anything. You could even say that it started before that. For me personally, I say that its start was in October of 1973 when Mito Uehara first published Fighting Stars magazine and put Bruce Lee on the cover. that's when the popularity started to kick
out?
off, and I think it went for a solid 20 years.
I think maybe in the US.
Yeah, this is just what I was about to
not
say.
in
So maybe the
UK.
US versus the UK market, maybe we're seeing a different thing here.
Not even. No, that's not true. That's not true. Think about it. When did Dan Inosanto first come to the UK? In what year? In what year did Paul Vunat first come to the UK? In what year did Rick Fay first come to the UK? In what year did Cass Magda first come to the UK? In what year was Chris Kent there? In what year was Salem Astley there? And when did they go to Australia? When did they go to Germany? When did they go to Italy? When did they go to Japan? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I think like if you speak to regular people and you say, "Do you know what kickboxing is?" They kind of go, "Yeah," they get a rough idea. "Do you know what MMA is?" "Yeah, I know what it is." "Do you know what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is?" "Yeah, I know what it is." If you say, "Do you know what JKD is?" "Oh, is that like Taekwondo? Is it like TKD?" So I don't think it's quite got that level of popularity or your sort of public consciousness where people know what it is. So I would say it's less successful in that sense. Obviously, all us guys have been doing it a long time with it with the hardcore.
So do you mean today?
No, even years ago, I would say it didn't really reach the same popularity.
Okay.
If I can put my 2 cents into this one, I think I think the problem, and I think it's the blessing, but also the curse, is that JKD has so many directions that it's going for. You have the Inosanto version or camp, and then you have those that are only doing the original JKD. And then when people look at it from outside looking in, they don't really know what it is. It's usually just Bruce Lee. And most of us has been in the game for long enough. We are also involved with other martial arts that has more of a unified front. And I think that's one of the problems with it, that there's so many directions and flavors of Jeet Kune Do that it's so hard for the common folk to kind of know what it is.
Yeah, I think Dwight's got a very good point actually, because I started in '87, and by then Inosanto was coming, Cass was coming, Larry Hartzell was coming. There was like a boom period for about 10 years where everybody was coming to the UK. And then what's happened is, I think what they tried to do with the Jeet Kune Do nucleus was a really good idea. And then when Shannon Lee and Ian Kiesler got involved and saw that it was starting to make some popularity, they accused John Little of trying to rip them all off, which was bollocks, and in short, fucked it all up. And I think it was going in a really nice direction. There was some really good stuff going on, and money got involved, and they went for the wrong thing. I think they thought, because I think they looked at the Elvis Presley enterprises and thought we can do the same thing with Bruce Lee, but obviously you can't, because it's a completely different amount of material to draw from. And it was going good, and now it definitely has lost its way in terms of what Matt's saying. I think is absolutely true, that the Jeet Kune Do as a thing is known by us guys, and so also with the death of so many of the students now, I mean, there's only really Dan who's out there doing it from the original group. They're all dead, and so my interest is to promote the teachings of Richard Basillo, but equally I've developed, that's the way I've gone. We used to have a badge that had Jeet Kune Do on it and Dossi Paras on it and the IMB, and then we changed it a few years ago because it became irrelevant to the general public. So the general public would listen to us now and go, "What
Easy
are
now,
those
and
old blokes talking about?" Because that's the way they would view us.
Andy, I think you're right on what you just mentioned, because it's kind of like the same thing that happened in Denmark. The most popular era for Jeet Kune Do was in the early 2000s until 2010-ish. There was a few different groups that started popping up, but some people were chasing certificates and wanted the whole instructor, or let me say it like this: the apprentice instructor rank had a totally different vibe on this end, and then there's all the infighting and politics, and now I think basically it's just me that's left. and all the other ones that are no, there's me and another one. But anyway, all of those people that were into it got tired of the politics, and now they're doing other arts instead.
Yeah, we still promote it as a thing, but it's part of what you do. And I think what Dwight said earlier, and also what Matt said, was it being an idea is what still holds it together. The philosophy still holds true, but the martial art, it's a little bit antiquated in its own little way. It's interesting and it's still there, but you know, its relevance has become less in much the way that Matt Thornton went down that line, when what he was saying that trapping doesn't exist anymore, and then all those types of things, true or not, makes no difference. All we really try and do is promote our art to the general public and say what it is.
Well, here's the thing, okay? It can't do anything by itself. Jeet Kune Do does not wake up in the morning. Jeet Kune Do does not take a nap during the day. Jeet Kune Do does not go to bed at night. Jeet Kune Do doesn't do anything. It's the people. Realize how much we have been talking about the people. It's not the art. It's the people.
Yeah.
So what we have to identify, if there's going to be such a thing as a revival of Jeet Kune Do, okay, to me, the only other word that is as worrisome as reviving Jeet Kune Do is preserving Jeet Kune Do, okay? Because you preserve something that has died, and I think you revive something that has died also or is close to death, correct? But the art can't die. The art can't do that. It's the human beings who have to animate the art. So we have to identify what did the human beings not, what did the human beings do or not do? That's what has to be identified. You can't identify the art.
Yeah.
The art
Julien,
doesn't
do you want to say something, my friend?
I wanted, but I need to go back to one sec. Oh yeah, I can see that. So, what I wanted to say, first of all, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people here that have got much more knowledge, much more experience with JKD. But my experience with it, as I was growing up in France, there was a lot of different martial arts that I was big on Silat at first, and then I moved to some other things. But when I really got into the JKD concept was when I discovered a few people in France that were teaching the police forces, like people like Robert Paturel, I don't know if you know him, who trained with Danny Inosanto years and years ago. And every time what I found is that anyone that went to train with Danny Inosanto was very, very interesting to train with, because there were so many different angles, so many different things to have a look at. And to me, that was the beginning of, absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, and add your own sauce to the mix, which has always been my thing, create your own method, because we're all individuals at the end of the day. And what I find is that most of the people that I know that trained with Danny Inosanto, that I never met, by the way, everybody says is a true gentleman, absolute encyclopedia of martial arts. I found that everyone had a different, everyone created their own hybrid systems out of JKD concepts. And it's only later on in life when I moved to the UK, I went to train with Tommy Carruthers, who's really my lineage, so the Ted Wong lineage. And something happened. I realized that it was a completely different approach. I'll explain what I mean. You see, for example, combat sports, why I love combat sports, why I love Thai boxing and MMA and all that, because the curriculum is very simple and very compact, and we keep circling back to the same toolbox, right? Now, as opposed to traditional martial arts, which have a massive toolbox, super heavy to carry everywhere you go. And the analogy that I would give is when I arrived in Glasgow, I went to live over there, especially so I could train at the Wolfpack. And when I arrived there, I had maybe like 20-something years experience in the martial arts already. And Tommy, when he saw me arriving, using the analogy of the toolbox, he said to me, your toolbox is too big, it's too heavy, you got too many tools in there, you will never have the time to train everything and become good at everything. So basically, he took the toolbox, spin it upside down, and just emptied it on the floor and went, you don't need this, you don't need that, you'll never have enough time to work on this is not good enough. Just focus on these 7, 8 things, but attack them from as many angles as you can. And after training with Tommy, the mindset was completely different. It was really street mindset. You know, it was like get it done as fast as possible, end it as fast as possible. Eye jab, groin kick, side kick to the kneecap, break legs. Very simple stuff. And not a lot of that trapping stuff, not a lot of that wrestling stuff, which is very good as well. Don't get me wrong. You need it. You need striking, wrestling, and the ability to flow to navigate flawlessly from one to another. But it revolutionized the way that I saw Jeet Kune Do. And then, you know, I never got into the politics because I have no time for that. I'm here to learn. We're here to elevate each other, right? But I think the problem with Jeet Kune Do is that everyone has got their own version of it. And the only version that I found that really has got a solid foundation is what I've learned from Tommy and ultimately the Ted Wong lineage. And to me, I mean, I could be wrong, and I'm open to that I might be wrong, right? But the only time where you can really see what Jeet Kune Do is about is at the Long Beach tournament when Bruce Lee does a demonstration with a padded suit. To me, this is what Jeet Kune Do really is. The rest, Danny Inosanto is a brilliant martial artist. He knows a lot of things about a lot of different martial arts, and he brings his wealth of knowledge into JKD. But I think he says it himself that not everything he teaches is part of Jeet Kune Do. Now it's part of the concept because it's his business, but do you know what I mean? That's my thought anyway on what Jeet Kune Do should be. Jeet Kune Do should be for the street. It should be aimed at ending it as fast as possible. Simplicity, directness, economy of motion, time, energy, and space. And outside of that, there is only distance. There's only targets, tools, distance, angles, and timing. What else is there? There's nothing else. And that's my opinion anyway on what Jeet Kune Do is and why it didn't really make it.
Let me ask you this, Julien.
Yes.
How many finger jabs, groin kicks, and kicks to the knee did Bruce Lee do in that demo in 1967?
None. There was a few eye jabs. There was a few eye jabs on different angles, but there wasn't too many eye jabs. There wasn't any groin kicks. So it was more, the flashy stuff.
It was a kickboxing demonstration. It was a demonstration of full contact training. That's what set it apart for most people. They had never seen martial artists dress like spacemen and move that way.
Yes.
There's a story that they asked Bruce Lee afterwards. They go, well, what's your style? Because sometimes it looks like boxing, but then it looks like kicking, but then sometimes and Bruce Lee says something like, well, it's no style. And they're like, well, how can it be no style? And he's like, well, because it's all styles. And they're like, well, how can it be all styles? He goes, well, because it's no style, right? Like pure 1967 Bruce Lee talk.
Yeah, I feel like the JKD that I believe is the original JKD is not a mixture of 27 art. It's mainly fencing, boxing, and Wing Chun. Mainly. Yeah. That's what I've learned from Tommy anyway.
But you also said that the grappling stuff is important.
It's important, but it's cross training. I do a lot of cross training, so I train in MMA, Thai boxing, I do combatives, I do Krav Maga, I do all that stuff because it's cross training and it's useful. But as part of the curriculum, we didn't do a lot of grappling with Tommy, and I think that's a bit of a hole because you need it.
Yeah, because if it's important, right? If it's important, then it should be trained.
Absolutely, I agree.
Okay, so let me ask the group this question: is Jeet Kune Do training about totality in combat?
In its essence, yeah, that's what it's supposed to be.
It is, right?
It is.
So you can't ignore any aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
So grappling has to be a part of your Jeet Kune Do training. Trapping, however it is that you want to describe trapping, has to be part of your Jeet Kune Do training as well. So anybody who says, well, it's just this and not that, is violating Jeet Kune Do principles, because Bruce Lee himself said, if you say that Jeet Kune Do is this but not that, you've missed the boat. You've missed the point.
But Dwight, I think it's in the marketing towards the general public where it gets confusing. because everyone is pushing an agenda or a marketing tool, and I think that's what confuses people.
I agree.
How? But that's terrible marketing.
I know.
Marketing
I'm not
Matthew
agreeing on it. I'm
Chapman,
just saying
Matthew
that.
Chapman, back me up on this. Marketing which confuses people is abysmal marketing.
Correct.
No. It's not. I don't need that. I mean when you start comparing different schools or organizations between each other,
The
everyone is
public
pushing one
doesn't
thing.
do that, Jerry. The public
I
doesn't
know,
do
I
that.
know.
We do that.
I know, and that's
Right.
what I'm saying is confusing people.
No, it's not. The people aren't
Go on,
confused.
Julian, go on.
It's us.
Can I say just one thing? So one thing that sets boxing and Thai boxing and MMA apart from a lot of things is that stress testing from day one. If you
Yep.
don't keep your hands up, you get punched, you get knocked
Yep.
out, you get kicked, you get
Yep.
punished from day one.
They don't pressure
Now,
test.
a lot of the JKD that I've seen, right, and I mean no disrespect to anyone, a lot of the
Nah.
JKD that I've seen does not implement the test of stress, the test of time. When we was training with Tommy, we would learn the movement, and eventually at some point Tommy would go right, left side, try and knock him out. Right side, if you get knocked out, it's your own fault. Try and apply what I just shown you. And we would really go full on, and people would get knocked out in class, and people would get bloody nose, and it was a completely different mindset. It was a very street mindset, and that's what I like about combat sports or about like combatives, good high-level combatives, is the pressure test element. If you, and I'll be honest with you, I used to love trapping and all the Chisal stuff. I was never able to make it work in a fight. And, I've worked the doors for 15 years in Latvia, Lithuania, Ukraine, Scotland, England. I've had my share fair of fight, and I took my way out of many more, right?
Yeah.
But what I can tell you is I was never able to make trapping work. Never.
Okay,
It just never worked for me.
Just so you know, as
Yeah.
soon as you said pressure test, Mark Black woke up. 'cause
Well,
that's his
yeah.
favorite phrase.
Did
But I
someone
would-
just
I would
want to say
also
something
say
else?
that-
Sorry, speak up, guys, because
Yeah.
if someone wanted to say something else,
Right.
speak up. I just heard. Can I just?
Yeah, I was going to say, I've made trapping work. But I've also found that if I pressure test in class, my class goes empty. The thing about BJJ is that you don't get punched in the face, kneed in the face, or elbowed in the face. Which is why they can pressure test from day one. And they're on mats, they're not on concrete.
Yeah.
Oh, and they're on mats.
Back in the day, I used to actually train
Yeah,
in
exactly.
a car park.
Yeah.
Mate, we got that.
Of course.
Is there such
Yeah,
a thing as
there should
Yes,
It
yeah.
should-
I mean,
yeah.
you do it in Carly. You actually do the 1-2 series or the catch series.
Yeah, it
That's,
should
that's
be
safe
covered.
pressure testing. You're getting
same
used to
as
range
kickboxing.
and pressure.
The same as boxing, the same as any combat sport, you develop
Yeah.
it incrementally.
Wait,
Day
wait,
one
wait,
class.
wait,
Once
Yes.
you walk into a JKD class and go, right, smack, there you go.
Yeah.
It needs to be done incrementally. Of course it does. It goes with tag sparring, then it escalates further. But there still should be that element of pressure testing there. If you're teaching a kickboxing class, at some point, you spar. You need to then put into
There's gonna
account
be-
what
yeah,
you're doing.
Agreed.
Okay, so I'm confused.
School
Is
to
the
school.
pressure
I think there should be.
testing in
We
JKD
pressure test.
training, or
We
is
pressure
it
test
not?
through sparring.
From my lineage, it is.
Good
So
schools.
then,
do
how
it.
are people confused, Glenn? Jerry? How are people confused? Everybody here says.
I
that
said it's in my
in the
teaching. I didn't say that I teach a mass
All
of
right,
people.
so let me ask this:
That's
am,
the
am I the
difference.
only one that has that? But am
I mean,
the only
my
one that
door
has that-
flapped so
that
hard it could turn into a fan.
That people are confused.
There's different types of pressure testing and different intensities as well, right? And different mindsets that you can fuel to your pressure testing. So, for example, if you do a bit of BJJ, you can gradually implement the pressure and the non-compliancy until you get to a full non-compliance. That's a scrap, that's a fight. Now, that's what Tommy used to say. We don't teach to spar, we're fighting. So we used to do micro fights of who is getting the guy first, who is breaking that kneecap with the side kick first, who is popping that eye jab in first. And do you know what I mean? So I think sparring is very important, but sparring is still compliancy. So what I want to speak about is asymmetric warfare versus compliant warfare. My turn, I block, I give it, I take it, I give it, I block, I take it. That's an exchange. That's a reciprocal exchange. As opposed to asymmetric warfare where I'm going with a lot of aggression and a lot of technique until it's done. And once it's done, then I'm done. I don't give him the chance to show me what he knows. Same principle in combatives, and it was very much the same in at the basement with Tommy Carruthers. It was that mindset of asymmetric warfare. My turn, my turn, my turn, my turn. It's over. I'm gone.
So that none of that answers the question that we asked at the beginning, which was, where is JKD and has it lost its way? And it comes back to everything that Matt would have talked about earlier, which is the marketing message. So anybody who's ever studied David Ogilvy was the king of Madison Avenue. Wrote some great books on advertising, and one of the adverts that he looked at was he had to advertise a Rolls Royce, and he went through the pamphlet, the book, all about Rolls Royces, and at the end of it, his message was, at 60 miles an hour, the only thing you can hear is the ticking of the clock.
Yes.
JKD has never answered that question as succinctly, never, and that's the problem.
Okay, here's my stab at that.
Without a good marketing line, you have a problem to reach out. All of it, everything that we've all said is all true, but in terms of reaching our marketplace, it is the time has passed. The big build.
Yeah,
was
I would
what
agree.
I said earlier,
I would
was
agree.
70s, 80s, and early 90s, and since then,
Yeah.
well, maybe.
But if somebody walks into your Jeet Kune Do school today and says, I heard about this thing called Jeet Kune Do. I don't
but no
know
one
much
does.
about it.
That's the problem.
I know, but I heard about it, and I heard that it's from the great Bruce Lee. And all, like, my dad and his friends and my uncles, everybody talks about how great Bruce Lee was. And here you are teaching Jeet Kune Do. Can you tell me what it is? What is your answer, Andy? Can you tell me what this Jeet Kune Do is that I've heard is so great? What's your answer?
Yep.
Well, the first thing is no one asks that question anymore. No one. I mean, literally, no one. If I teach,
What was your answer when they did ask?
I always said it was an idea more than an art. It was, it was always.
But that's not a very Ogilvy answer.
You asked me what I would say. See, I would have said it was the. If anybody ever asked, I always said it was the martial art that Bruce Lee developed. That was the one. And then people said, "Who's Bruce Lee?" And I went, "Oh shit!" And then I would say, "Brandon Lee," and no one knows he is either. So the problem is the lineage, really, in terms of where it goes. And yet, interestingly, Elvis Presley as an icon is more popular now than he was for a long time because of what Baz Luhrmann's done recently. And really, if you were going to bring back the Bruce Lee thing, you need a Baz Luhrmann type approach to it. But I mean, we would all say that what it is now is we've all developed and we've all changed because we've actually followed the JKD path and followed our own line, haven't we? So we have found what it is, for us, and how it developed.
Okay, so does everybody have a definition, right? Because there's two things I'm interested in hearing from the group. Does everybody have a definition of what Jeet Kune Do is? And also, can you say specifically how it died? Because if we are agreeing, if we're surmising that it needs to be revived, so do you have a specific definition of what Jeet Kune Do is? And then can you tell me how it died?
Can I go?
Let's go.
So I think there's two things to have a look at. There is the philosophy that was used to create Jeet Kune Do, and then there is the martial art Jeet Kune Do. That's my opinion.
But can you answer it? Can you say it as an answer to a question? What is Jeet Kune Do?
So what is Jeet Kune Do? Jeet Kune Do is, I would say, a bit the ancestor of mixed martial arts, where the first person that publicly went and had a look at that art and pressure tested and experimented and built something that was his own, right? So the philosophy that he used to create Jeet Kune Do is the JKD philosophy, which you can read a lot about in the books. But the actual martial arts, to me, it's a very simple, direct, economical martial arts that's really based on straight line. And what is Jeet Kune Do? You would have to show it to show what is Jeet Kune Do. If I ask you what is Thai boxing, how could you could describe what we do in Thai boxing, the spirit behind it, the philosophy behind it, but you would have to show what Thai boxing is. So that would be my answer. Who can really tell what Jeet Kune Do is? It's a martial art, and it's a philosophy. And how did it die? I don't think it died. It died with Bruce Lee, but then again, did it really die? He passed on certain things, and I think that Bruce Lee shown different things to different people because he had some trust issues as well. He was showing certain things to people that he liked more, and showing other things to other people. So and we know that. Right? We know that. But
I can't say I know that.
So I don't think.
Okay, guys. So if Bruce hadn't have died, where would JKD have gone?
It'd be more simple. It'd be more simple and more direct.
I don't know. It's too big of a question to answer.
Because you've got to think now, the world's changed from 1973. Things have become more, they've become different. Things have become more prevalent with the UFC. What would his take on the UFC have been? Would he then have brought stuff like grappling more to the forefront? Would he have taken striking in? Would he have got rid of trapping, perhaps?
Julian,
How do you think that would have done?
I think it would have got more complex. I think just because the avenues that Bruce was exploring before he died,
Yes.
he was getting into a lot of other stuff that wasn't maybe pure sort of Junfan Kung Fu. So
Yes.
I think it would have got more evolved and more complex, possibly.
But the concept, the main combative principle and concept in Jeet Kune Do is simplicity and directness, right? So if one thing that I've
he would
learned,
have given that up.
yeah.
You think he would have given up simplicity and directness?
No, I don't think he would have, because to me, Jeet Kune Do is really what it is. And when I know I quote Tommy a lot because he's my teacher, right? But I'm not here to glorify him or bring him forward or say he's the best or anything like that. I'm just saying because he was my teacher. He always used to say daily decrease.
Unfortunately,
Try to do more with less. Try to simplify. If there is too many movement, cut it right to the bare bone so that you're left with absolute simplicity and directness. And he would always try to think how to make things more simpler, and he gave me that. That's really something that served me so much as a martial artist, as an instructor, because I dropped all the other complicated stuff and I just stayed with stuff that, when people ask me, how should I punch, just fucking punched him in the face. You know what I mean?
But Julian, I have a thing for that you just said. But you have to have something to cut it from. You can't keep cutting something, but you need to have inspiration. You have to have input from something to have something to cut off.
True. I do agree. You have to keep refining. Perfection it doesn't exist. It's a direction. It's a general direction where we're going. So we can always simplify. We can always get better, faster, stronger.
If we're answering Jordan's question, right?
Yeah.
Because Jordan, it was you who asked it, correct?
No, I didn't ask a question. No.
No. Okay. Because when we do the what if, right? What if Bruce Lee had not died? I think that you should draw your conclusions from what he did leave with us. Sometimes it seems to me that people in answering what if, they answer according to their preferences, according to their likes or dislikes, instead of thinking about what Bruce Lee said, what he did, what he wrote, whatever his source was. That's why Matthew, I beg to differ. I don't see him giving up simplicity for complexity.
Yeah, okay. So one thing I do think would have changed if Bruce had stayed alive is MMA would have happened sooner. Because obviously if you watch the opening scene in Enter the Dragon, he's wearing MMA gloves, he's got MMA shorts on, and he's doing MMA moves. So I think that would have happened faster, and it might not have happened through the Gracies. It might have happened through Bruce Lee, because he would become a bigger and bigger star.
Okay, but you see,
MMA would
you know what
come
that
through
is?
him, possibly.
But that's a touch of presentism. You see, because what you're combining is what did happen with the imaginary what might have happened. You see, when you say MMA would have happened sooner, but MMA is a combat sport. Evidence doesn't point to Bruce Lee going in the direction of sport.
I disagree.
So what
because
might
all
have
of his
happened?
training with Joe Louis and the various combat athletes he was training with, he wasn't training with
Yeah.
martial artists per se. He was training with combat sport athletes and
Yeah.
getting really good at combat sport arts. He wanted
But-
to be in that crowd and around that type of people. And Joe Louis trained with him a lot, so I think he would have gone more down that route, more down the sport route, and I think MMA would have happened soon.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Matthew-
I get what you mean. But how is that complex? That's not complex.
Well,
Matthew.
yeah, sorry, Julian. Yep.
Matthew, so essentially, and that's something, a conclusion that I came to a bit later in life, is that, I used to be one of the Krav Maga guy that was saying we train for the street, the sport is for the sport, and I now completely disagree with that, because I think that if you want to be complete, you need to be good at combat sports and bring the street stuff and the street mentality and make it join together. So would Bruce Lee completely abandon the street mentality in order to get into the sport? I don't think he would have. I think he would have definitely cross-trained, as he did, and he would have probably become really good at it and developed something along the line of a combat sport like MMA. But you can't finger jab, you can't kick to the ground, you can't break.
No, but I think he
kneecaps with side kicks in an MMA
would have
match.
evolved past the self-defense aspect, because let's be honest, if you've got decent boxing skills, a good speedy finger jab, a good kick to the groin, aggressive intent, you're going to handle most people, especially if you preempt.
Your self-defense is there, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think he would have, he's not going to be practicing finger jabs for the rest of his life. I think he would have moved more into the sporting arena, maybe trained fighters. He was training Joe Louis and advising him on techniques. So I think he would have gone more into that and got more and more popular in that arena.
Well,
He definitely would have adapted it. I feel he would have had this. I feel like he would have had the street self-defense kind of application in Jeet Kune Do, and I feel like he would have taken those principles and applied it to combat sports. Because I totally agree with Matt on that. It's like you said, at that opening scene of Enter the Dragon, it's just a little mini MMA fight scene, and he was apparently meeting up with the Gracies to study more jiu-jitsu at that kind of time as well. So I feel like if he was still with us, I feel like he would have adapted and brought those concepts along to combat sports.
How about this as an idea? What if you took Bruce
Go on,
Lee
Andy.
out?
Yep.
What if you just said Bruce Lee died such a long time ago, what he left us and how we've developed it? Maybe that's the legacy that we should be thinking about, rather than just hanging on to Bruce Lee. Like that thing that Dan...
Sorry, Andy, that makes too much sense. You can't say that.
That's Jeet Kune Do, isn't it? There you go.
Yeah.
There you go, Dwight. That's what Jeet
Great.
Kune Do is. Cutting to the core. And so that thing that Dan went to, the fan thing, the documentary. What was that? A couple of months back, September.
Yeah, around September time. Yeah.
So you went to that, and there was 200 people there, and there were 10 people who actually trained in martial arts, and the rest were all British.
Is that what I said to you, weren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's absolutely fine, because on the one side, there's nothing wrong with that at all. That's a good thing. I think people just hang on Bruce Lee a little bit too much now. Everything was fine back in those days, but we've all evolved. All of us know more than Bruce Lee knew. Now, if we didn't, we screwed up, didn't we? Because we've been learning for 40 years. So, Bruce was a very young man when he died. Richard Bastillo used to tell me loads of stories about Bruce Lee, and he said, he was a young man, and those things that we did as young men, as Muhammad Ali said, if you're the same person you were at 50 as you were at 30, you've wasted 20 years of your life. And that would be true of Bruce as well. And those history magazines, you go, the what if histories, they're the worst fucking magazines ever, aren't they? Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What Bruce left was amazing, was incredible. But I think if you just keep going back to Bruce all the time, it is a little bit about us arguing whether being Protestant or Catholic is better, really, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is. It's Andy, you're right. It is dealing with the legacy. So when did the decline of that legacy start? What's everybody's opinion on when the decline started?
Well, I think it was when they cocked up what they were doing with the Jeet Kune Do nucleus group, the JKD Foundation. That would be my thought. We did a Jeet Kune Do conference in the UK. We had Richard Bastillo, John Little, Chris Kent, and Ted Wong. It's the best thing I ever organised. It was absolutely brilliant. And then about 6 months later, they did a similar thing in Amsterdam, and they had loads of people over, and that gave me the opportunity to train with Taki Kimura and Jesse Glover and all those guys that I hadn't met until that point. And then straight after that, it just imploded because John Little seemed to be holding it all together because of what he was doing with the books, and it was a really good thing that he was doing. And they pissed off John Little. He went off and did his own thing, and then it just went whoop, like that. So all of that stuff that was starting to bring together. I mean, there was a little bit of argument whether Dan should have been in there, and he didn't want to be involved. That's entirely up to him, isn't it? You know, Dan's got enough legacy that he is God. He still is God. You know, it's as simple as that. You've just seen those videos of him in Australia at 89 years old doing just fantastic things. He's God.
Yeah.
Don't argue with God. You know, it's as simple as that. That's what I think. And
Were there other thoughts on when the decline started?
that would be my thoughts anyway.
Well, I'm not
I
sure.
don't know why Terry Valler's hiding and not saying anything.
I'm not sure it's gone to in a decline. It's just other things have moved on, haven't they? I don't think it's a bad thing. If you've been doing martial arts as long as we have, we saw the judo boom, which is now less. Judo's less and less popular than it's ever been. We saw the karate boom, and karate's still very popular. We saw the ninjutsu boom. I was part of that for 10 years. I did ninjutsu for a decade. That's definitely disappeared. That's gone.
I never saw the ninjutsu boom. I couldn't see it.
Let's bring it back.
And obviously then we had the Kung Fu / JKD period, and that's kind of gone its path. And now we've had the Jiu-Jitsu period and the MMA period, and that will eventually go its own way. I'm not sure it's a terrible thing. I just think the right people who want to train it will find it and train it.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, but does it not have to be constructed to be appealing to what people are looking for today?
What are people looking for?
Or do we fit? Okay, so what are people looking for? What have people been influenced by over the past 30 years?
Well,
the UFC, right? They've been influenced by kick, punch, elbow, knee, takedown, submit. True or false?
True.
Okay. Does Jeet Kune Do have kicking in it? Does it have punching in it? Does it have trapping and grappling takedown in it? Yes or no?
Yep.
So why is it not appealing?
I think it's because of the UFC things that, like you said, Dwight, people are being conditioned for it. So if they come to your school, they want to go to an MMA match. And if you're not teaching towards an MMA thing and you're teaching something else, you know.
Okay, well, it's a very simple solution. Matthew said, right, look, here's why Jeet Kune Do owns MMA. What was the first cinematic depiction 20 years previous to the UFC 1? What was the first cinematic depiction of an MMA bout?
Enter the Dragon.
Enter the Dragon. We own it then. We own it. Why aren't you people positioning yourselves as the owners of MMA through Bruce Lee? Come on. It's a simple solution. No, instead, what happens?
Dwight, I can't hear you. There's snow coming in, or static or something.
Yeah, there's a static. Can we mute people if we're not speaking? Let's try and mute, please. Thank you.
Okay.
Bloody
Go on, Dwight, sorry.
So can you answer that for me? Why don't we behave as if we own it?
Why is there no JKD competition like MMA? Why? I mean, it's for me, it's a very simple answer. Because you can't break people's leg with a side kick, you can't eye jab, you can't groin kick in a match, in a sporty platform. It's not.
Matt, when you were fighting previously in MMA, were you fighting under JKD? Were you fighting under MMA? Were you fighting as a kickboxer? What did you do when you competed?
I was doing JKD, yeah.
There we go.
But I wasn't eye gouging people and kicking them in the nuts. They did that in UFC 1, 2, 3, 4, and it wasn't popular and it was bad for marketing, so they dropped all of that and created a rule that was a bit more clean. But yeah, I was definitely applying JKD principles in a combat sport.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you look at people like Phil Norman, you look at people like Rick Young, you look at people like this that are kind of the next generation under Guru Dan, things like that. Amazing martial artists in their own right, and they're using the JKD principles. Ron Baliki, another kind of example of that. Eric Paulson, fantastic example of that.
They used the JKD principles, yes, but what did they identify as? Did they put the name Jeet Kune Do, right, out there when they were competing in empty hand competition? Did they use?
I know
the
Phil
name
definitely
Jeet Kune
did.
Do? Huh?
Phil, I know, definitely did.
Okay.
I imagine Eric would always go, yes, I'm Dan's man. I'm not going to speak for him, but I would imagine that he'd always say, my lineage is under Guru Dan and shoot fighting, and I'd imagine that Rick Young would be the same.
But okay, so I mean I don't know. That's why I'm asking. But if Eric
Yeah,
did
yeah.
say my lineage is under Dan Inosanto and shoot wrestling,
Yeah.
then he didn't say it's Jeet Kune Do. So now nobody knows how to identify. So now nobody is aware that Jeet Kune Do principles are what is being used in these competitions. We are aware, but the public is not being made aware. Bad marketing. Jeet Kune Do didn't do that. The people did that.
Dwight, I think you might be right in the sense that the most popular martial arts of all time all have a sporting element. They're all sport martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
Or they started as combative martial arts and then turned into sports martial arts. And judo, karate, taekwondo, kickboxing, MMA, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, all are sports. And there's no JKD sport.
So why can't we have one?
We should.
But does that raise the question, though, if there was a freak athlete that came in and said, right, I do Jeet Kune Do, would that boom the Jeet Kune Do?
Well, weirdly,
Hell yes.
Here's a weird
Hell
thing.
yes.
Here's a weird
Hell,
thing, guys.
if Conor McGregor had made a big deal, right, about SBG, and if Matt Thornton had not become disillusioned with Jeet Kune Do, and so Conor McGregor had landed on the map, SBG equals Jeet Kune Do, what do you think people would have done?
Well,
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I definitely feel like if there was a Conor McGregor that's representing JKD,
Right.
I
Okay.
think it would be a
So-
big boom.
Julian, the skill that it takes to kick somebody in the knee, can that be modified to kick him in the stomach?
Oh, I have very
Okay.
successfully.
The skill
sidekicked
that it
people.
takes to finger jab somebody in the eyes, can that be modified to punch him in the face?
Absolutely, and that
We
was going
got
to
the
lead.
competition right there.
So that was
We
going to
got
lead.
the competition right there.
It is, but that was going to lead to my next question. If JKD was turned into a combat sport,
Yes.
how would it differ from MMA?
Here we go. Yeah.
So
It would be MMA.
I thought a lot about
No. Here's how you do it. Here's how you do it. I have to tell you guys this is the secret of MMA that nobody talks about. So you know, like those guys on the YouTube that have the channels that are all about revealing the secrets, right? Well, this is what do you call it? A hidden secret that's been in plain view. Here's the hidden secret of MMA competition. Bruce Lee invented it. Look at Enter the Dragon right there. It's indisputable. We just never built on it.
Can I say something? Before Bruce Lee, I'm talking about old school Greek, ancient Greece, and like really long time ago. MMA was already there.
But we
Pancras.
don't care about that. I'm not Greek. I'm not ancient Greece, right? I'm Dwight Woods from Barbados that went to LA because of Bruce Lee and Dan Inosanto. I don't want to give Pancration credit. I'm giving Enter the Dragon, Bruce Lee in the modified gloves, in the sport, in the speedos, right? Submitting Sammo Hung. That's my thing.
I
don't
can't
care
even
about
get people to
Pancration
watch
and-
Into the Dragon.
The issue is
When Enter the Dragon
the
came out in the
conflict
cinema
guys,
last year.
Guys, the conflict is between the self-defense angle and the combat sport angle.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So
No.
No.
loads of people,
No.
even if you create a
Yeah.
JKD competition,
Okay.
All the
No.
eye-jabbers,
Hang on
swing
a second.
kickers would say it's
Hang
not
on a
true
second.
JKD.
When
Hang
Angela
on a
Yeah.
Taken came out the
In
cinemas,
a judo school, is there a judo class that is taught for competition? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
In a judo school, is there a judo class that is taught for self-defense?
In some schools, yes.
No.
In
Yes.
some schools, yes.
Less likely.
Right? Okay. But now, in a jiu-jitsu school, is there a class that's taught combative self-defense?
Yes.
Is there a class that's taught competition?
Yes.
Yeah.
So in a Jeet Kune Do school, let me just ask you this, right? I mean, you see where I'm going? Is it possible to have a class that's taught for competition, Jeet Kune Do competition, and then is there possible to have a class that's taught for Jeet Kune Do self-defense? Please answer.
it's
Yes.
possible,
Yeah.
but I don't.
Yeah, it'd be an MMA
Yeah.
class.
Why
Yeah, Dan,
aren't
yeah.
we doing it? What? I missed that. What?
It would be an
It'll be
MMA
an
The
class.
MMA
question
class.
is, how many of us are actually interested in
No,
teaching
it would
that
not be an
competition?
MMA class because you forgot we did the marketing to reveal the deep dark secret of MMA is that it's actually called Jeet Kune Do. Come on.
Can I say something? So, if you have a look at boxing or Thai boxing at a highest level, I'm talking like our professional level. This is when you start to have a look at dirty tricks, right? Tricks that are just on the fence line of what is accepted by the rules, right? I know for a fact I got a few very good friends that are ex-pro MMA fighters. Like one of my very good friends, that's my coach as well. Because he grew up in the street like me, he's a ghetto guy, you know. He's a streetwise guy. He's actually showing me some MMA that is dirty for the street because he understands the mentality of the street. So you can turn any combat sport into a
street art,
dirty
yeah, you can.
fighting just by switching certain things, shifting certain things. And you know, my goal right now is to take the MMA, mixed martial art, and adapt it for the street. So develop a solid MMA skill set and then get rid of the rule set, add the eye guard, the biting, the gouging, the ripping, the tearing, the fish hooking, the weapons and all that stuff. So we can do it. It's possible. Of course it's possible.
Okay.
It's the mindset that changes. Asymmetric warfare or exchange.
However,
Sport exchange.
the exclusive focus of JKD people on self-defense meant that no one really ever thought of turning it into a combat sport.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. In spite of the evidence way back in the 60s that it was applicable because he trained Norris, Stone, Lewis, who was the other guy? Anyhow, right? So we knew that Bruce Lee was adapting it for that. So there's the evidence that it could be adapted for that. It's like when people used to talk about, oh, well, you can't teach Jeet Kune Do to kids. And I thought, well, did you ever see a picture of Bruce Lee training Brandon Lee as a kid?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, so the founder of the art had a way to pass it on to his own son, but you're telling me that his descendants can't do the same thing. Come on. Come on. Look, it's as simple as this. If Jeet Kune Do is about totality in combat, right? Then it's about totality in all aspects of combat, including the instruction of combat. So it's not like, oh, well, it's only for male athletes. No, it's for females as well, and it's for kids. It's for old people, because it's about totality. You never let anything limit your thinking when it comes to Jeet Kune Do thinking.
I agree. Yeah. We've not heard from anyone yet. Terry, what do you think, my friend? Do you want
Where
to
did
throw in
Rolf
your...
go? He has not said a word.
Yeah, we've got a few
And
now.
that Terry
Now,
Valler
not a
guy.
word.
Let's see. Who should we have? Paul Finn's in as well.
Paul Finn didn't say anything either.
Oh, Terry.
Jump in, guys.
Quick one on the MMA JKD stuff. The problem sometimes is, because I have my own right to, you can do the wrestling, you can do the jiu-jitsu, you can do the kickboxing, but if you start trying to bring in the Thai, the Silat, it, people don't see it, so they don't want to do it. You see what I mean? So when you start going, and then when you, and then adds to the complexity as well. So you start doing X amount of material from one system, X amount of material, rather than maybe saying, do you understand your base? Spar that, train that, work out what's good for you in that, and then fill in the gap with other ones. You might go, right, okay, well, especially in UK, maybe single knife would be a good idea. Maybe a single stick, backs, right? And then going, well, the wrestling happens a lot. When you're fighting, you clinch a lot, both on the street and on the cage, and in the ring. But so then you go, right, well, put wrestling in with the trapping, because, and then you can put the CLAC strips in the wrestling. You kind of have to play around with it that way. So it's quite individual. So it's a bit of a conflict with, especially young people. Young people do most people come from martial arts, right? And they see MMA, so you can't teach them all these other arts because they're just not interested. They can't see it in the cage, so it doesn't. They won't want to do it. And also MMA has a set of rules, so them rules would dictate what you can do and you can't do.
And that's the whole
So
self-defense problem argument. Because
Yeah.
we always go back to, well, yeah, you can't poke them in the eyes, can't kick them in the balls, can't headbutt them, can't bite them, so it's not real, and therefore we never really explore like the combat sport applications or what we could do. Bob Breen had a great idea. He told me sort of 20 years ago, and it's a shame he didn't implement it. But he wanted to create a competition where it was the first round you started the fight at high reference point, like Enter the Dragon. You start the fight from there and you go from there. So maybe there's a trap, maybe there isn't. The second round you go like JKD kickboxing, but obviously with the gloves on, etc. And then the third round you do some sort of grappling and wrestling stuff. So like a JKD themed competition, but it never, unfortunately, saw light. But it'd been pretty cool. I would have done it.
but the Paul
That would have been
Venus
great.
scale,
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
the Paul Venus scale works quite well. It's 5 points for them. So where you work on the principle and the intercepting, so you get more points for interception, and then you can play around with that stuff, right? Because JKD is supposed to be able to intercept. I mean, how many JKD people can intercept? Because it's not easy.
Mhm.
It's a time and uh, it's difficult in the cage because you can't you kind of in boxing range already, right? Or striking range. But obviously, if you do door work, you can. There's that bit before you get to a place where it's more verbal, right? So you can intercept on that point because at that point in time you can legally then say you defend yourself. So you have to obviously look at a legal view of it as well. So if there's an altercation at a club or a pub and people coming forward, you can then intercept. But people don't train. I mean, how many JKD people train interception?
One thing I would say, just on a slightly different note, Terry, is I think JKD sort of went off the boil when it wasn't able to be turned into a combat sport. And because of that, it would never get hugely popular because you can't have TV shows, you can't have competitions, you can't, have events at big shows.
It's not your pay-per-view event.
You can't have a pay-per-view event, so it's never going to be as popular as the other sports that manage to take the combat,
So wrong.
take the
That's
combat
so
out
I
of
would
it.
I would want to let me
Go on, Rolf. Go on.
yeah, I would want to disagree with that. You know, I've been into JKD for like 25 years now, and I've been into other martial arts as well. And for example, I'm into the Aikido world as well, and it's very similar to JKD, not technical wise, but in the historical view. Well, the founder of Aikido didn't get taught the art. He developed it. So did Bruce Lee. So there's a similarity. But the big difference is the founder of Aikido wanted to spread the art. And he taught people to spread the art. He encouraged the people to contact other people, to spread the art, to go around in the world and all that. As far as I understand, Bruce Lee never meant to spread Jeet Kune Do. It was never meant to be like that. And he didn't plan to die. And when he all of a sudden died, I mean, all the people he trained with, they were very, very much influenced by Bruce Lee. All the people I talked to, all my Sifus, I mean, when you talk to them about Bruce Lee, they're very touched. I mean, tears roll down their eyes, you know, and they're really deep in that connection with Bruce Lee. So they felt the necessity to just, you know, perpetuate the art, to give it to other people, to explain it and all that, you know. But it was never meant to be, because it wasn't a finished product. So there is the big difference. In my opinion, Jeet Kune Do is not a finished product. It's a way. It's a way, and it's a way to evolve. And there are a few words that Bruce Lee himself not said but wrote. If you want to look for a definition on what JKD is, and you can find this in one of John Little's books, which is very, very close. And if you look at it and if you compare it with what you see, what Bruce is displaying on screen, you can see that it's really, really close to that. But I think, you know, and the energy that came up with all the people that have trained with Bruce Lee, and their intention to spread the art in the world, was driven by the energy of Bruce Lee, the film star. You know, like the big man on the screen and all that, and that made the art going. But then it just rolled out, and it lost its energy because there wasn't something. And it's different with Aikido. I mean, Aikido is very big in the world right now. And why? Because they're all pulling on one string.
Yes.
A very quick message now, guys, from our brand new sponsors, Nest Management. Let's be honest, most of us got into martial arts to teach, not to wrestle with the spreadsheets. If you love helping students but you hate the admin, that's where Nest Management step in. They handle the boring stuff like payments, bookings, and all those little jobs that usually end with you wanting to go 3 rounds with your laptop. You focus on the teaching, they manage, they market, and they take some of the stress away. Simple. Check them out at nestmanagement.co.uk.
Rolf, that was worth the wait. It took him an hour before he contributed, but that was worth the wait.
It's
right?
got to percolate. The idea has to percolate.
Listen, because look, he just touched upon a bigger pattern that we are all circling around. Okay? The demand for information and training in Jeet Kune Do exploded when Bruce Lee died. Okay? But what happened? What happened on seminars? What was taught on seminars?
Silence.
Yeah.
Trapping.
Huh?
Trapping.
Trapping. Okay.
Yes, people started to argue about whether the 1964 set was better than the 1966 set. And if that wasn't any good, let's go for 67 instead then.
Okay. What
Let's
else?
argue about nothing much at all, really.
What else? What else? Think about what Terry Valler talked about. What else was taught?
Carly, Silat.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Muay
right.
Thai. Yes. Right? So now, see, when people talk about being confused, I never hear people talk about what the source of that confusion is. You see? So, seminars grew, but seminars were not Jeet Kune Do seminars because the transmission of Jeet Kune Do is not a thing that takes place in a room with 60 people to 100 people. That's not how it worked. But in a seminar setting, you can give people the essence of the art. You can give an appreciation for the art. But that true cultivation, when you all talk about personal expression and what have you, how are you gonna? How are people gonna get what it takes to express themselves honestly and personally in a room with 99 other people? But that can happen at your school in your special class. Remember that at the Kali Academy, the Jeet Kune Do class was a small class of about 12 people.
Yeah.
That was the class that a lot of people were dying to be voted into. Recreate that in your schools. So you have, and if you want to put labels on it, you have the Junfan martial arts as the fundamentals. This is where you start. And everybody's goal is to get into the Jeet Kune Do club. You know how in the karate schools, the taekwondo schools, what do they have? They have the regular classes, and then you have the black belt club. Mm-hmm. And the black belt club is the premium offering. You could very easily, very, very easily design your Jeet Kune Do school that way. What your goal is to be voted into or make it into the Jeet Kune Do club. But you can't start there. You start, and we have the historical backing. What did Bruce Lee call his art before he called it Jeet Kune Do?
Junfan.
That's what you start with. Why? Because
that
that's
like
what
style.
he started with. And then he evolved.
That
teaching
somehow
people,
sounds like a style. I'll start with Junfan
what?
Kung Fu.
What? How does that sound like
Ooh.
a style? How does that sound like Junfan Kung Fu is a style? And Jeet Kune Do is the ultimate expression of that style. It is the evolution of that style. So when you talk about, you have to have something. You have to have something in order to practice. You have to build up in order to practice at the higher levels the daily decrease. So you have Junfan Kung Fu, you have Junfan kickboxing, you have Junfan Kung Fu. This is what people do at the lower levels. Understand this.
Yeah.
Junfan kickboxing is the kicking and punching and elbow and knee and portion of it. You know what? You know how people love Muay Thai because it's part of MMA? You friggin' have that in Jeet Kune Do already. You have that. It is called Junfan kickboxing. So you start them with that. Everybody that wants to go to a Muay Thai school, right, because of MMA, you could advertise at your school, you know, we are the practitioners of the deep dark secret of the history and the origin of MMA. It is called Jeet Kune Do, and it came from Bruce Lee. But at the lower levels, we have a thing called Junfan kickboxing, Bruce Lee kickboxing, which is the forerunner to even the Muay Thai that you're so in love with. And that's what you teach. And then you have Junfan Kung Fu. Now, what is Kung Fu? Kung Fu is a more sophisticated level than kicking and punching. It is called trapping and grappling. So now, all the combative stuff, self-defense stuff, the takedowns, the chokes, the locks, all that stuff that they're doing in jiu-jitsu, you have it in your Junfan Kung Fu. And those are the levels that your students go through, ultimately graduating into the Jeet Kune Do club.
Go on, Julian.
Can I say something? Okay. So, basically, the way I see it, right, is that you got cross training and then you got your bread and butter, right? So, if you train Jeet Kune Do and you're thinking about daily decrease, you're training Jeet Kune Do. Now on the side, you can go and box, you can go and grapple, you can go and do some left way, you can to learn how to throw the headbutt. You can have a look at all that stuff as cross training, but I wouldn't call it Jeet Kune Do. It's just outside elements that are useful that I will bring into my toolbox.
Julian.
One sec. Very last
Julian,
thing.
Is
Yes.
there
One
anything
sec, Dwight.
about
One sec.
Is there anything about headbutting in the Tao of Jeet Kune Do?
No, but Bruce Lee
Yes,
spoke about
there
it.
is.
Yeah,
Page
he spoke about it.
68 of the original edition.
But if I can say something, if I can, and by the way, Dwight,
I was just about to say that, Dan. I mean, come on.
by the
Say,
way,
if you knew that, my God.
By the way, Dwight,
What?
Dwight,
Yeah, we need to go back to school.
Oh, but he did actually state to bite
Yeah,
in
let me get my
Long Street,
book.
didn't he? Come on.
Dwight, I love your. I love your enthusiasm, by the way, Dwight. I wanted to tell you that. I really do, man. What I want to say is that because of my understanding of what Jeet Kune Do is, I think it's very similar to meditation. So I don't know if any of you, meditate, but I do meditate daily. I like to switch my mind off. I like to be present.
It's page 78, not 68. It's
Okay.
page 78.
Okay.
You guys
So-
look it up. It's right
so
there
when we-
along with the Savat and the Muay Thai. There's the headbutt on the heavy back.
Yeah, I believe you. If we speak about daily decrease, if we speak about daily decrease, we speak about not adding more stuff. It's not a collection of technique anymore. We're not thinking technique, we're thinking concepts and principles. But when we speak about daily decrease, we're speaking about taking away from the essential instead of adding more and more and more and more and more, which makes it heavy. Same thing with meditation. It's all about stripping away the unessential in order to stay with the essentials, which is pure presence. And when you get into that present state and you feel the vibration of your whole body starts from your hands, your feet, you go with your breath. And at that point, when you start feeling at one with the universe, you really start understanding what presence is and what we really are. When there is no thoughts,
Right.
where you just feel your whole being vibrating and you know that God or the universe
Right.
is sending that vibration and it's part of you, right? I know I'm going
Yeah.
on a tangent here, but when Bruce Lee said, have you seen the interview, the Pierre Burton show, where Bruce Lee basically was dropping esoteric mysticism right there and then, right? And I think that, really my understanding of Jeet Kune Do is about this. It's about daily decrease. It's not about adding more stuff. You can train different things in order to gain some sort of skill set, some sort of knowledge, but ultimately your bread and butter should become smaller and simpler and more direct and more effective and less dangerous, safer. Do you know what I'm saying?
But that's
So daily
what, that's,
decrease.
that's what the Jeet Kune Do club at your school is about. Because not everybody's going to qualify for that. Not everybody's interested in that, right? And when you start meditation, your mind is so full of stuff. Well, and then you learn to decrease that stuff. So the analogy, so it still works. When the student walks through the door, you gotta give them stuff, right? Now, it doesn't have to be an excessive amount of stuff, but it does have to cover the fundamentals. But then the Jeet Kune Do training, the Black Belt Club, is specialized training. People cannot appreciate specialized training from the get-go, which is why Dan and Asano could not go anywhere and have 60 people in a class and teach them the specialized training that is Jeet Kune Do. So he had to do something other than that. That's where the idea of I'll show them the concepts. I'll show them how the concepts of Jeet Kune Do can be found in other arts.
Do you reckon that Dan Inosanto also at some point, started thinking like a businessman as well? And
Never.
No?
No. That's bullshit.
I think he's a martial artist first and
I don't know
foremost. In
him.
terms of business,
No.
Yeah.
There is a somewhat pervasive line of thought out there because they got to find something. They always try to find something to. But look, all you friggin' have to do, go to LA, spend a few days in LA, and then you come back and tell me, oh my God, I can't believe he lives in a mansion in Malibu. He drives. His students have better cars than him. His Hollywood people have better cars than him.
Yeah.
Please, right? So this idea that he started thinking like a businessman, so he added this and he added that, and no, the reason why that stuff came out was the original intention was no one owns simple direct attack. You can find it in Muay Thai. You can find it in Letway. Nobody owns attack by combination. Right? I mean, Bruce Lee himself didn't take it. He didn't invent those. He was just the first person. He brought those in from elsewhere.
Yeah.
Right? Okay? So Dan Inosanto, in teaching that the concepts of Jeet Kune Do can be found, right, in other things. Because ultimately, it's about human movement. Well, there's no way that one set of humans from one continent are going to move essentially in a completely different manner from another set of humans on another continent. Because we all have...
Gentlemen, sorry, Dwight. I've got to shoot off, guys. It's been fun.
Matthew Chapman,
Cheers, Matt.
do not be surprised. Do not be surprised if you get a message from me in your mailbox.
Okay, thank you, dude. I would say...
If it's an attachment, don't open it.
Before I go, the original question of why it's not, thriving, in my opinion, is because it didn't turn into a combat sport. So I'll leave you with that.
I'm with you on that.
Pull the pin on that and fuck off.
See you later, guys.
Thank you. Good night.
Have a good one. Cheers. Bye.
Cheers, Matt. Thank you.
Bye.
Don't anybody crack a joke about how he's old and he can't stay up late.
Well, I've been on the go.
Yeah,
Since
he's
I
not
was-
gone yet.
So, and the other part is the marketing. It's as simple as that, really. You know, the marketing has never matched up to the marketing that BJJ did and MMA and UFC and all that sort of stuff. Basically, if you got 3 letters in your name, you're halfway there, aren't you?
Yeah. It's a good thing.
That's why we're UFS.
There you go, see, sorted.
We were all sorted. Yeah.
Not just a hat rack. What do we think then, guys, has to change in the next kind of 10 to 20 years? Do we think something has to change in order for it to survive, to thrive? You know, if we kind of go around the room a little bit and put a sentence in of saying what has to change, what has to adapt, does anything have to adapt? Does it have to stay and just keep doing? Is that all good? Where should we start? Glenn?
I think that we all have to do a better job at actually marketing it, or at least spreading it out. Let people know that we're still around.
What do you think the best way to market it is then?
Facebook ads.
Yeah. OnlyFans. I don't know. I think I think the way to go at it is just to put it out there in any kind of event that you can, be it martial arts festivals, be it some kind of event where you can kind of shoehorn yourself into ads, stuff like that.
And what aspects would you market? Would you market the whole thing, or would you market, say, as Dwight's saying, more of like the baseline of doing the kickboxing, and then would you then progress when your students come in? Would you then go into the trapping, the cheese out, the other elements? What do you think?
It's kind of my school is kind of already run like that.
Okay,
but
cool.
I think the only difference is that on my end I got to be better in actually putting it out there so people can actually find me.
Okay, so you're saying market it out more and just put it in.
Yeah,
everything that you
actually, because you have to start thinking like a businessman if you want to have that influx of potential clientele.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Jordan.
So for me, it's interesting. Our JKD students have kind of boomed in the last few weeks. Like our adult classes have like doubled in numbers. We teach 150 kids Jeet Kune Do. So it's been really booming. I think I do agree with the fact that as marketing is part of it. I think Dwight had a really interesting way of marketing it as it being like the father of MMA, which I've never really thought of marketing in that way. But when I have students come in, I always explain to them like Jeet Kune Do is martial art and philosophy, but it's developed by the late great Bruce Lee, and the purpose of it is to develop all areas of combat. And I think people looking for self-defense.
Hey! Did you steal my paperwork from years ago?
No, that's what we do. So in our JKD, we do the
Brilliant.
Sticks,
Brilliant.
knives, kickboxing, grappling, trapping.
Brilliant.
We do everything.
Brilliant.
So people are looking from a self-defense aspect. I feel like it has everything that they want. I do agree with Matt that I do feel like if somebody came into the combat world and really said I'm a JKD guy, and I think that would help elevate it as well. But I feel like if that was to suddenly happen, people would just be like, "Oh, it's just MMA, or it's just kickboxing," or so. How would we cross that? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Sure.
But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts, really.
Cool. Anyone else got thoughts on this? So what we can change in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years? Like I said, does something need to change, or as good as it is? But, you know, for those that are running schools, or those that, or even just practitioners.
I think Jeet Kune Do should be proven to work in a stress. I think there should be more stress testing going on about. People should see why Jeet Kune Do would work and why it wouldn't work if it's taught a certain way. That's, to me, what interests me. I don't know if you guys noticed, but you know, high-level MMA guys, or even people that train 4 to 5 times a week in MMA, you tell them about Krav Maga, Jeet Kune Do, self-defense, and they laugh. They don't need it. They don't want it. They're happy with what they're doing because they know that they get the real pressure. So what I'm trying to say is, if we could get Jeet Kune Do to a level where people could go, all right, this is how you... I like to see people doing it really in real speed, full on, full contact, and see what goes and what doesn't. That's me. So if we can get Jeet Kune Do to get to that stage, I know with Tommy Carruthers, we was definitely getting it to that stage, although it was controlled still. If we can get it to that stage everywhere and have a standard, an international standard where that's Jeet Kune Do, and if you want to be teaching Jeet Kune Do, by the way, I'm not an instructor by any way, shape or form, don't pretend to be, never will, but if you want to teach Jeet Kune Do, you need to be able to make it work at that level. And if you can't make it work at that level, sorry mate, that's not Jeet Kune Do. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think personally this is where Jeet Kune Do needs to go in order to go up.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Okay.
No.
So,
Dwight, go.
in your conversation with Mark Tucker, and then in his soliloquy a couple of days later when I saw it, I think the guy's name is Mark Wright. There was mention. So, okay. So imagine this, right? Imagine this. Who were the JKD people who were well known in the MMA world? Give me some names.
Previously, it was Phil Norman.
No, right
now.
Right now.
I can't think of anyone. No one now.
Of course you can. Because you mentioned them in your conversation with Mark Tucker.
The Phil Normans, the Rick Youngs.
Yes. Okay, so I'll mention them for you. So there's
Eric Paulson.
There's Eric
Paulson. Yeah.
There's
Greg Nelson.
There's Burton
The
Richardson.
Gregs.
Right? And then
Yeah.
Mark Wright, in his video on the decline of Jeet Kune Do or whatever it was that he said, he mentioned Frank Cucci. Okay. You know what those 5 guys all have in common?
Go.
They're all Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts.
Yep.
Okay? Okay? So there was a gravitational pull away from Jeet Kune Do into BJJ.
Yeah, the grappling aspect of it. Yeah.
By top, right? And now why? Because they're competition and pressure testing, reality based. That's why Matt Thornton, as far as I know, that accounts for his departure. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So we talk about if one top level competitor said, "I'm Jeet Kune Do," what that might do. Imagine if all those guys that we just mentioned made it known that Jeet Kune Do is their roots. Okay? The reason why they are Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts now is because of their grounding in the principles of Jeet Kune Do.
Yeah.
But it's said deliberately and specifically.
Sure. So why isn't it now? Or why hasn't it been?
So, let me read to you from the second page, right, of the Tao of Jeet Kune Do. Some martial arts are very popular, real crowd pleasers, because they look good, have smooth techniques, but beware, they are like a wine that has been watered down. A diluted wine is not a real wine, not a good wine, hardly the genuine article. Popularity, my friends, that's all it is. That's all it is. Now, that I am not saying I'm not saying that BJJ sucks. Of course it doesn't. Right? Of course it doesn't. But popularity. So, if we're going to change anything, we have to we can't lie about it. We have to change the way that we think about it. Here's one thing we have to think. Jeet Kune Do has never been about adding anything. When you think that because Dan Inosanto, because he is known as Bruce Lee's premier disciple, and because he's teaching Kali, and he's teaching Silat, and he's teaching Muay Thai, if you fall for the stupid idea that he added those things to Jeet Kune Do, you don't bloody well know what you're talking about. He didn't. But those things became associated through him with Jeet Kune Do. So people started walking around thinking that Jeet Kune Do is a mishmash of this and a mishmash of that. It is not. Look at Bruce Lee's training manuals, Bruce Lee's training logs. What did he do? 500 punches in the morning, 500 punches in the evening. Right? So he focused on a few techniques well executed. That's what you do in your Jun Fan kickboxing and your Jun Fan Kung Fu as well. A few techniques, but well executed. Well, how long does it take the average person to be able to do that stuff well? It's not immediate. Because they're not like us. They're not at the school every day. No, these are real people with real lives, so you're going to see them twice or 3 times a week. So they're not going to be proficient, right? They're not going to be proficient in 2 months. It's going to take them a year to get through the basics. And that's just the basics, right? That's just the basics of kicking and punching and elbowing and kneeing. You look. Does a Taekwondo student, is that person a black belt in a year? No. And they don't have half as much material as we have to teach. They don't. Okay? So you got to understand what it is that you're teaching. So Julien, it would not be about adding a lot of different techniques or a lot of different arts. That is a misconception because of the seminar system. Right? Because Dan Inosanto shows up, I think it was in England, and there's a bunch of people in their karate gis, barefooted, ready to do the first Jeet Kune Do seminar. Well, they don't even know what a baijong is. Right? So how can you teach them this so-called Jeet Kune Do? You can't. So a student that walks in your door cannot be taught Jeet Kune Do day one. In the same way, right? It was said back in the 80s that Penjak Silat Bukti Nagara, Penjak Silat Tongkat, and Penjak Silat Ratu Duri or Ratu Adil, that these were the carrier systems for Penjak Silat Sarah. Okay? Well, Jun Fan kickboxing is the carrier system for Jun Fan Kung Fu. Because, here's why. Yeah. Here's why. Taken from the history of Jeet Kune Do and the Wing Chun element. When you have bridge contact with a person, you must have skill at reading and controlling their center of gravity. Yes or no, Paul Finn?
Absolutely, Dwight.
Okay, right? So, you can't start there. Because in order to have impeccable control over your opponent's center of gravity, you have to first have impeccable control over your own center of gravity. So how do you develop that? Through dynamic kicking, punching, elbowing, and kneeing. Learning how to move your own body in space.
Yeah.
Now when you crash, because you have such good control over yourself, now you can start to learn how to gain control over others. And by the way, Julien, that is a philosophy for life. If you have no self-control, how will you ever control others?
So one thing, and I agree with what you're saying. Before I start, I'm not religious in any way, shape, or form, but I'm very spiritual, and I enjoy the old school scriptures, mainly mysticism and all that stuff. And when you look at Bruce Lee's philosophy and the spirituality that goes hand in hand with what Jeet Kune Do is supposed to be, right? What do you think about that? I think that personally, ultimately, spirituality is about getting ready to die, preparing for death, right? So, where does that fit in what we're talking about here? Does it have a place?
Yes.
Should it have a place?
It does. Do you know the Bruce Lee quote that is taken from, I don't know its origin, and I'm not a nerd. I can tell you it's in the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, but I can't tell you what page. But it is the thing about let your opponent smash into your flesh, right? Let him graze your flesh and you smash into his bones. Let him smash into your bones and you take his life. That's preparation. That's Bruce Lee talk. That's Bruce Lee talking about preparation for death. About right? About putting it on the listen. Look.
Before you go on, Dwight,
Yes.
on,
Sorry,
if I
Andy.
don't prepare for my dog walk, I'll be dead.
Andy, do not be surprised if I reach out to you privately.
That's all right. That's all right. Guys,
Again, don't click the attachment.
it has been fascinating.
Okay.
So the answer is better marketing
yes.
and better sports. Right.
Facebook ads. That's what we got. Facebook
Yeah,
ads.
that's what we got a whole evening. Very good.
But
Thanks for letting me join in, everybody. It's been fun. All right. I look forward to seeing the recording.
See you, man. Hey.
Take care, everybody.
Apparently,
Right.
Bye.
Take care, Andy. Cheers, buddy.
Okay.
Dog appreciates it.
So, raise your hand if you agree that Bruce Lee is a very good example of physical excellence.
Of course.
Okay. Raise your hand if you agree that in listening to Bruce Lee in interviews or on TV shows or maybe even in a movie, that you could see that he was a guy who had high emotional intelligence. Okay. Raise your hand if you think that Bruce Lee is a good example of someone who developed his mental faculties. I see. So everybody agrees that Bruce Lee is a good example for physicality, for emotionality, and for mentality.
Yeah.
And
Can I
that's
ask a question?
And that's what you teach at your school, yes?
Sure.
Uh-huh. And Bruce Lee is a good example for that, yes? Do you see where I'm going with this?
Go on, Julien.
So, raise your hand if you believe that Bruce Lee was an occultist. Ooh.
I think that when you have physical, emotional, and mental development occurring somewhat simultaneously, there is an automatic spiritual development.
Yes.
I agree. Yeah.
You know, when
So-
I listen.
That's how I would promote it.
Yeah.
It is a complete. So, Jordan, this was my answer. What is Jeet Kune Do? It is Bruce Lee's martial art method and martial art philosophy. It is, and it espouses well-roundedness. Well-roundedness as a human being, and well-roundedness as a martial artist, and well-roundedness as a human being. Oh, what do you mean well-roundedness as a martial artist? Oh, well, there's two types of martial art training. There's empty hands and there's weaponry. So to be well-rounded in empty hands, you must train in striking and grappling. So in striking, we have kicking, punching, elbowing, and kneeing. In grappling, we have throws, locks, takedowns, submissions. The second area of training is called weaponry. And in weaponry, you have long weapons, medium range weapons, and short weapons. You have blunt weapons and you have edge weapons. The training of Jeet Kune Do encompasses all of this. And so if you're wondering if that sounds like a lot, yes, I will be honest with you, it is a lot. To get good at it, you're going to have to make some kind of commitment to me and the school, but more importantly, to yourself. That's my pitch.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you.
Mic drop.
So, Jordan, so that's why I wondered if you had snuck into my school, right?
Dwight, before
Guys,
I,
I'm gonna have to say good night.
Yeah, we're going to wrap this up, guys. So literally, we're going to have just, if you've got 2 seconds, Julian, I want to have just a little round bit just to say kind of a last sentence or so and what you kind of wanted from this conversation and what you think you want for JKD in the future. So a few people left, so I can see everyone now. So this is good. So Terry, we're going to start with you, buddy. What did you want from this conversation? Has it kind of fulfilled it a little bit? And what do you think you want for JKD in the future? As this was kind of the whole point, the whole purpose of this topic.
The purpose of the interview just interested to listen to people's views because obviously you can mix some ideas. As for JKD, going forward, it should always be Jun fan should be the base, and then from there, this is where it gets difficult. It should be people's individual research. So whether, and then it depends on the environment, right? So UK, for example, like I say, we should look at the weapons and go right. Well, single knife and single tip are relevant. They then fit into that structure. Wrestling, clinch, and working off your back. So in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, spend a lot of time doing X-guard and De La Riva because they're the most efficient ways to put people off balance when they're trying to punch you, when you're on your back and they're standing. So that fits into that JKD structure because there's a gap there. So you research the grappling arch from the back and see that from the hairy mouse stuff because it fits in with the wrestling and it fits in with the Jiu-Jitsu. So that would be your research in the grappling to fill in the areas that are weak in the John Fat.
So get your base up, and then from there your own research goes in.
Yeah, so it should be that. Yes, it's up to them, the individual, to go out and do their own research. But it should be the goal instructor to get that across. So once they've taught you the John Fat, it's then up to you as your own person to go out there and look at other things.
Then your journey, Grasshopper.
Yeah, it's quite difficult. That's why not everyone's going to get Jeet Kune Do, right? Because not a lot of people are willing to go and do that work.
Sure. Okay. Thanks, Terry. Matt. Oh, you're muted.
I'm back. Sorry, guys.
There you go. Hey.
So, if you want it to thrive, it needs to be a part of it needs to be turned into a combat sport, and then it will be more popularized, I reckon, and more people get into it. But it needs obviously the right people pushing it forward. So for me, I think if you want it to, I don't see anything wrong with Jeet Kune Do being like a niche thing that a few nutters do. I think that's actually a good thing. But if you want it to rise to the level it could do in popularity, it needs competitors, it needs athletes, it needs TV exposure, it needs competitions, it needs champions, it needs belts, it needs entertainment.
Did you say
the pretty
belts?
stuff?
Did you say belts?
Belts, yeah, I know, belts in Jeet Kune Do, eh? Crazy.
Wait, you mean like championship belts?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Glenn.
What was the question again?
I have no idea anymore, buddy. I have no idea. I got Facebook ads. That was it.
No, anyway, in all seriousness, I mean, what I wanted out of this was just the opportunity to meet people. I mean, I think this is the first time we've actually had so many people from so many different lineages and, places in the world to just hang out and talk and pretty much be decent with each other. I also wanted to just hear everyone's input and stuff, but I think what it was been said before about just putting Jeet Kune Do out there is probably our best way to actually repopularize, make it visible to people out there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Jordan?
Yeah, similar for me, really. I just wanted to kind of get everybody else's opinion on JKD. I just want to make sure I'm just doing the best that I can and represent the art that I love, that got me into martial arts in the first place, the best way I can, and to get other people's ideas and just kind of connect a little bit. And I think it's important to remember, like, we all love this martial art. We all got on this, because of the love we have for it. And I think it's important to remember our similarities rather than our differences, and remember what brings us together. And just to make myself a better coach for my students, and that's all I really want.
Well said. Nice one, Jordan. Paul?
Hey, Dan. Yeah, I haven't said a lot. I mean, to me, really, at the start, I still don't think anybody here has defined what JKD is, what we were even talking about. I don't think anybody has. I don't think anybody really knew what the fuck we were talking about half the time. I don't want to be controversial, but that's what I thought. That's why I didn't say anything. I mean, if you say JKD, and again, there was this talk at the start about politics, but politics plays a massive part in it. I've been involved in JKD for 34 years. I know Dwight's been involved in it for even longer. And you could argue, being in America, he's closer to the source. I mean, I've had to travel to America for the last 34 years. And if you're saying JKD, I think even at the starting point, are we talking about what JKD? Are we talking about JKD concepts? Are we talking about so-called original JKD? I think that's even part of it. So part of the fact that we don't even know what the definition is, what fucking chance has the public got of knowing what we're talking about? Secondly, Dwight was absolutely right. I think the whole world changed on the 12th of November 1993. That was the first UFC. That was the first time we saw this guy called Hoist Gracie come out and pulverize everybody. I remember sitting there at the time being a JKD practitioner and saying, that guy could never take me down. Absolute nonsense, but I had no idea, because the world then was a very different place to what it is now. We didn't have the internet, we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have tutorials, we didn't have mass marketing. The UFC has become massive, billions of pounds. Sport, martial art, combat sport. In the 90s and 80s, people did traditional martial arts, and tough people fought with traditional martial arts. That's changed. The money's come into the sport. How can you be a professional JKD practitioner when you don't get paid for fighting? It's just like when I was young, everybody did JKD or Wing Chun or boxing, but the people who were doing that then won't do that now because they're not going to get paid for it. They might as well do MMA or Thai. At least they're going to get some sort of remuneration. On a larger point, if we're talking about how do we go forward with JKD, I think Matt's got a good point. I still believe it's a niche thing for sort of crazy people like us who are just devoted to it. But if you're talking about a business strategy, obviously, if you want to sell it, you've got to appeal to as many people as possible. My JKD classes 20 years ago were popular. They're not now. I think the problem is, a lot of people come in from the middle classes. They don't want to get hurt. That's why they don't go to boxing. And then the boxers don't come to JKD because there's no actual so-called combat sport competition. So it sort of falls between the two
middle ground.
catchments. Yeah, I think that's the difficulty there. I think either you try and make it really specialised, like Dwight said, and make it like, the black belt class. You can only do JKD if you get involved in that sort of high level. Then you have to put a high price to it if you're selling it. Or B, you just make it available. I think it was Jordan said you got 150 kids in your kid program. Well done. I wouldn't teach kids JKD, but that's just me. And even Dwight said, like, Bruce taught his own son. So, it's different for everybody, isn't it? My definition of JKD is not going to be the same as Jordan's or Matt's. I talk to Bob Breen about this all the time, and Ralph Jones, and we've all got different perspectives on it. I think it depends what you mean by success, and it also depends what you mean by JKD. So I think definitions are all important. That's my 2 pennies worth.
Good job, Paul. Nice. He came out swinging at the end there. I like it.
All right.
Cool.
Cheers, Dan. Cheers, buddy.
All right, buddy. Rolf.
Well, if you ask me, unification. And thank you for giving us the opportunity to come together here and talk about all these things, because I do believe when I started martial arts almost 50 years ago, then my primary goal was to win every fight. I got beaten up all the time and I wanted to be on the winner's side. So that obviously has changed in all those years. And now I still fight, but I'm not fighting against my opponent, I'm fighting against me. I'm using martial arts to develop. I'm using martial arts to pressure test me, myself, my emotions, everything that I am. And in that sense, there is no fighting on the outside. So, and I think, why should we fight each other? You know, why should we, you know, try to be better than him or better than him, or, you know, try to, you know, be the mega man or whatever. The thing is that, and that happened, I've seen it happen on, I'm sure that Dwight, you've been longer around in the JKD than me, that there was this discourse about, you know, he is wrong about Jeet Kune Do and I'm right about Jeet Kune Do, and this is the original and this is the concept and this is that and this is the mishmash and this is the Tet Wong and this is that and this is that. So all that didn't help to evolve Jeet Kune Do into something that it could have been. And for that, I do believe that unification, coming together and just build something, this is going to be the path to put Jeet Kune Do into a right perspective, reveal its jewels. It has a lot of jewels, in my opinion. And to quote with the words of my teacher, in the end, it's just a boat. And once you're on the other side, you don't need to carry the boat around any longer, right?
True. Nice. Thank you, Rolf. Julien, yeah, let's go.
Thank you, guys. Let me
Thank you, Rolf.
hop off.
Okay.
I need to go. It's pretty late here, so
You can leave, buddy. Yeah, no worries.
thank you.
Rolf,
Take care.
Rolf, before you go, I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed what you just said about unifying and about the inner fight, because ultimately everything that we do in life is about the great work of alchemy, right? So
Exactly.
whether it's martial arts, whether it's climbing, whether it's something, it's really about finding personal liberation, right? And getting ready for death, right? Getting ready for the afterlife, if you believe in that. But, and the other thing that you say about JKD being the vehicle, it's just a vehicle. It's nothing else. It's a vehicle. And to me, it doesn't matter whether we put the name JKD on it or original Jeet Kune Do or something else. My interest is how to win a fight as quickly and as efficiently as possible. You know, it's how to live, not to get killed. So it doesn't matter what name we give it. I love Jeet Kune Do for a reason, because it's simple, it's direct, and it suits the street mentality very well if it's trained properly. But whether we call it Jeet Kune Do or something else, it doesn't matter. To me, it's all about street fighting. It's about how do we end it as quickly as possible. Let's break free of labels and names and everything. What's the best way to throw a punch? You know, that's it. That's all we need to focus on. We need to focus on the end goal when it comes to the training. The rest, to me, is just noise. It's irrelevant. The rest is an illusion. So that's all I got to say about Jeet Kune Do, really. And I want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you to Dan for giving us the platform to express ourselves. And thank you, everyone, for sharing your thoughts. You know, it was great. Thank you.
Good to see you, Julien.
Bye, guys.
I like the beard as well. Keep growing that beard.
Thank you, bro.
Dwight, let's finish with you, my friend.
Okay. So we're talking about reviving Jeet Kune Do, Julian. So we got to use the name. Okay. Now, I suspect that English is not Rolf's first language, and so he said unification. Now, this is where people go, Dwight is such an asshole, right? It's not unification. Okay, my school is called Unified Martial Art Academy. It is not called United Martial Arts. It is called Unified Martial Art because the English unified comes from the Latin unus fio, means I become one. We're never going to have a unified Jeet Kune Do. Jeet Kune Do is never going to be one. What we can have is unity. Us right here, right now, sitting around a virtual round table, we are united in our interest in reviving Jeet Kune Do, so to speak. But we're not one. And Jeet Kune Do so there will never be a unified Jeet Kune Do. Okay, so to me, it's important to have accurate thinking about it and also accurate speaking, accurate language about it. So we can have a united Jeet Kune Do front. That's what we're seeking to establish here, right?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, MMA. You know what MMA? You know what that acronym stands for? Mass Market Appeal. You understand? You want to know what else MMA stands for? Another acronym? Mass Media Advertising. Get it right, guys. That's what you do. That's how you use MMA to build. What did I tell you the dirty secret of MMA is? It was born where? That's what you do. You use MMA, mass media advertising, and mass market appeal to build Jeet Kune Do because it came from Bruce Lee. Just do it that way. Just push that over and over and over and over again. Right? That's what we put out there. Then the other thing is, we have to understand, look, if you're going to revive it, now I don't necessarily think that it needs to be revived as much as it needs to be understood. Here's the other thing you do. To hell with this concepts versus original stuff. That is so stupid. To hell also with this Jun Fan Jeet Kune Do, which is a legal thing. Bruce Lee never called his art anything but Jeet Kune Do. Well, that's not true. There was a thing called Jun Fan. Terry, I know that you guys have this belief that Jun Fan is the base, and then you go off and you do your individual things in order to personally develop your own self in Jeet Kune Do, but that ain't it. That ain't it, right? That personal exploration stuff is Jeet Kune Do. It is Jeet Kune Do. The personal exploration. Now, if you decide, I want to be a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and compete in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournaments, fine, go ahead and do that. But when that happens, and now at your school, there's a BJJ class, or BJJ classes, and then there's Kali classes, and then there's kickboxing. But it's a Jeet Kune Do school. Where's the Jeet Kune Do being taught? If it's a Jeet Kune Do school, right? So how can you be interested in reviving Jeet Kune Do when what you're doing is, where every chance you get, you're talking about the problems of Jeet Kune Do. You can't revive a thing if you think it's problematic. You have to actually believe in it. You have to. That's the only way you can be strong in it. So it's got to be understood. That means that you have to understand what Dan Inosanto was doing and not fall for this illusion that Jeet Kune Do is a mishmash of stuff, of different arts. Okay? So that now, when I teach Jeet Kune Do at my school, I preserve it. I teach the 1964 curriculum, or the 1966 trap and progression, or the 1967 trap and progression. Find me in Bruce Lee's writings, in Bruce Lee's notes, something called the 1966 trap and progression, or the 1967 trap and progression. Find it. I dare you. Find me in Bruce Lee's writings, the jab cross counter offensive series. Catch, shoulder roll, cross up cross, now tech. Find that in Bruce Lee's writings. They don't exist. They don't exist. It's an unfinished system. It is up to us. It is up to us to continue to develop it. You got to understand what it is you're talking about. And if you guys think that, that's why, look, as much as I mentioned Bruce Lee's name and what have you, I am not saying that we have to, that everything has to go back to Bruce Lee. It doesn't. It doesn't. But you do have to understand what happened in the transmission of the information and the knowledge. You have to understand it. And here's a major issue. Dan Inosanto will not take credit for what he has done to keep the art alive. And because he will not take credit for it, he intentionally downplayed the importance. Everything that he has done over the past 40, 50 years has been driven by the Jeet Kune Do principle. Okay? That it's all the same. Look, Julien talked about I made notes here. Hang on a second. Julien talked about winning a fight. Now, what did Rolf say? Rolf said that he when he started, he wanted to win fights. Now his fight is against whom? It's against himself. And Julien talked about winning a fight as quickly and efficiently as possible. That includes the fight against yourself. You study to learn. And then that's what you teach your students to do. To win the fight against themselves. And who's the one that talked about that? That put that kind of thinking, that kind of philosophy into martial art? Bruce Lee in Jeet Kune Do. We have it. We own it. But if we have famous Jeet Kune Do people out there talking about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and not talking as much about Jeet Kune Do, and if when you so-called teach Jeet Kune Do, you're teaching the Chapman, the 1967 Chapman progression, that's the art of Jeet Kune Do? That's what you think Jeet Kune Do is? No wonder you're confused. It is not. It is about totality of combat. So you have to have a class called Jeet Kune Do that talks about totality. How do you prepare people for totality? You can't start with totality. You have to start with partiality. Kicking and punching, that's partiality. Use that as a launching for trapping and grappling. Another partiality. But when you take those four and put them together, you have totality of empty-handed fighting.
Perfect.
I'm done.
White. My friend. What a way to end. Take a breath. Awesome. Guys, thank you. This was illuminating. It was interesting. It's always good to get different perspectives. And just to get, I think, 10, 12, however many people in a virtual room together is pretty cool, I think, nowadays. And it just shows, you know, obviously we're all interested in JKD, and that's what it said about the unification of it, or the unifying. We're all here. We're all giving up our Sunday evenings to chat shit about JKD and really not come to many conclusions other than Facebook ads might work. That's all I kind of got from that. So, but thank you guys. You know, it's appreciated. I think there's some really good, joking aside, I think there's some really good points to be taken away from that. So yeah, just thank you for giving up your time. I will post all of this obviously online, spread it out to the JKD community. They can put their 2 cents in as well. Maybe one day, if the bandwidth allows, we'll do another one. We'll see.
And Dan, thanks for putting this together and getting us all huddled up.
All
awesome.
Good. All good.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dan. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
No worries, guys. Okay, cool. I'm going to hit stop now, and we're done. So you can all take a breath, and thank you again for being part of the first JKD Roundtable. Cheers, guys.
Okay, I hope I didn't yell too much.
What? I can't hear you.